Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I am Becky from My Creative Life, and on the screen you can see the completed layout for the process that I'll be sharing with you guys today. Here I have quite a bit of product here on my desk, and I of course just use some of them, not all. I am definitely using those snarky cats from Tim Holtz, which I think they're just so cute, and I am going to be using my square Dylusions journal, which is my favorite journal to work in. I love this size. There you can see I have quite a bit of layouts already completed. I have just a few left before I could maybe do a flip through of this journal. And most of those layouts, I have processed videos for them on my second channel, which I'll have linked in the description box. Now, the items I use on the layout today, I'll go ahead and add them in the description box along with the exact colors and so on. So I am using, once again, the Crackling Campfire ink pad from Distress Oxides, and I truly love this color. I understand that it goes really nicely with the speckled egg, which I also love, but I have not used both of them together yet, so I'll have to give that a try. But today I am going to go ahead and use my dome dauber from scrapbook.com and add that ink pad all around my 2 pages here, leaving some spaces empty for the hickory smoke that I'm adding in right now and blending together. Now, once I have my hickory smoke added on both pages, you'll see I'll switch out and grab the dauber that I used for the crackling campfire. And whatever was left on that dauber, I did not add any more ink to it. You can see I just went ahead and swiped it straight across both sides of my layout and just blended all of those colors together. So now that I have my background all nice and colored, and I did not add any gesso to my background before adding in these colors. I just added it directly onto the pages. You can see I used my heat tool. These dry really quickly, but still I wanted to make sure they were completely dry. So I did use my heat tool to help it along and make sure it was nice and dry before I added any more colors to it. And here I'm gonna add in some black soot and using it together with this stencil. This tree, I've had this forever and I really love this stencil. I have it also, this is the 6x6 right here, and I also have it in the 12x12 size because I just love it so much. And I'm going to use it here to stencil this tree on the right page and towards the edge of the page, so it's coming off the page a little bit there. Now once I add that in, you can see when I lifted it off, I have a little bit of the straight edge there. So to cover that up, I decided to go ahead and layer some more leaves, which did the trick. It covered it up, but it also gave a really nice effect to my tree. It gave it a fuller look, of course, because I'm adding in more leaves. And layering the leaves on top of leaves, it looked really, really beautiful to me. I love it a lot better once it's complete than if I had just added just that one single layer of that tree. And here you can see I'm even layering more towards the top, making my tree even bigger and fuller. Now, once I'm complete with the right side tree, I wanted to add one into the left page, but you can see there I'm flipping my stencils, so I have my tree going in the other direction, so they both don't look exactly the same. And I'm gonna make this tree a little bit smaller than the one on the right page. So I'm using my black soot once again, and I'm adding that tree onto the left page, making it smaller, but of course I am going to layer up those leaves again. So once I am finished with my 2 trees, and later on you'll see I add a little bit more of those leaves to the top, but for now I'm going to work on my wall. And my wall is where those snarky cats are gonna sit. And I did not want I did not want my wall to be the same height all the way across. So you'll see I'm gonna use the hickory smoke, which is lighter. It's a gray black, but definitely lighter than black soot. And I wanted to go in here with a lighter color first because I wasn't quite sure with the height variations how it would look. This is the first time I've done it, so I wanted to make sure that I really love it before I went in darker with the black soot. So here I'm gonna go ahead and use my stencil and add in my different heights of this wall, and I love how it turned out. So you'll see I am gonna go in here with the black soot now, and I'm gonna line up my stencil once again on my wall and go ahead and fill it in with the black soot now, just to darken it up. And already I love how this background is turning out. Now once I'm done working on my wall, darkening up all of those bricks with the black soot, I went in with the same color here, and I'm adding an outline to a border all around my layout. I'm just inking the edges, and I'll go really lightly on the sides and on the top. Seeing that I have this really dark element towards the bottom with that wall, I didn't want to go too dark on the top, otherwise it would just be too dark. I needed the brightness of the campfire, the crackling campfire ink pad there, the color I should say. So here I'm going really lightly on the top, and I'm just using that scrap piece of paper. That way, once I do the edges, I won't have any of that ink getting on any of the layouts behind it. So now I'm pulling out the Snarky cats, and I am not sure if I said it before, but I am not a huge fan of cats. Well, not cats, but animals in general, and little critters on my art journal layouts or even my scrapbook layouts. That's just not something I prefer, but when I saw these little cats, they're just so cute, and the Snarky phrases, of course, is just hilarious. So I decided to go ahead and get this set, and I love it. So here I am going to stamp them first of all directly on my layout, and I'll tell you why in just a few moments, but I'm going to be using my archival ink pad to stamp those on my layout and also on some white cardstock. And with that archival ink pad, once I add color to it, it did not move. That ink did not move and blend with the other colors or run or anything like that. It just stayed put. It was permanent. So here I'm using some white cardstock, and these are actually card bases, but they're very nice quality for adding mixed media to. They are from Ranger, and I'm not going to be using them as card bases, so I decided to just go ahead and print my images on there, color them in, and then fussy cut them out. Now the reason I went ahead and stamped my images directly on my background, and even though I'm going to do it on the cardstock and cut them out, the reason I did it on the background is because around these images there are little details, little scribble marks, some of the hair maybe from the cat tail that's sticking out, that you're definitely not gonna be able to fussy cut all of those little tiny details. So cutting out the main part of the cat and layering it on the stamped image that's on my background, I have those little details sticking out past my cardstock, so I won't lose those elements on that image, if that makes sense. So here I'm gonna go ahead, and you can see I'm not being very careful. I'm coloring outside the line because of course I am gonna fussy cut those out, and I'm gonna be using different colors from my distress crayons here. I will add the colors that I used down in the description box, and I am not good at coloring at all. But the good thing about art journaling is I don't care if it looks perfect or not. I actually like the messy look of it, and these definitely look messy. They look distressed, but that's okay. I love how they turned out. So I'm just using some of the, what I think is fire brick I use a green, I think it might be peeled paint, and it might be vintage photo or espresso that I use, that brown that's on the cats. And I also chose to use the little bird that came with the stamp set, and I colored the bird in fire brick. So next I am going to go ahead and fussy cut out all of my images. And like I said, I do not fussy cut all of the little tiny details. There's no way I can do that. But once I lay it on the background, those little elements are still there on the background. Now, fussy cutting, I'm not perfect at either. And I do have the sides of the cardstock, you can see, might be a little white, but I use this black soot ink pad just to ink the edges, and that hides any of the imperfections and darken up the edges, and that way it helps it stand out also against that background. But you can see here, my background is pretty bold with that campfire, crackling campfire, and my images, I felt it was getting a little lost in the background. So I decided to go ahead and add some white gesso, and I'm going to use my finger just to have a little bit more control. I'm going to start close to where the images are and then work my way out, blend it out into my layout. So you can see I'm covering up some of the bricks, some of the trees, some of the background, but that's okay. I think it definitely helped in toning down my background and helping my images stand out a lot more. So here I'm just going to continue, and it looks really, really white right now, but once it dries, it fades out a tiny bit also. Now I'm going to use what was left over from the gesso with my fan brush and add some splatters to the top part of the layout, and you want to make sure that it is fluid enough. You can see I will go ahead and add some water with my spray brush, and you want to make sure it's fluid enough so it adds the splatters, because once I use something to tap the brush with, which helps add the splatters, it just splattered everywhere. So I prefer to use just my finger to lightly tap. Now here I'm adding in my images onto the background, and I'm going to use some Dina Wakley matte gel medium. Like I said, it's matte, so once it dries, you're not going to get the gloss that you're seeing right now because it's wet. It's going to dry completely clear and matte, so it looks like part of the layout once that's completely dried. So I'm going to add in my two cats and my little bird. And here I have some of the snowflake stamps. It's a snowflake cluster stamp, and I'm adding that to the top part, and I'm using the Brilliance ink pad to add this in. I've had this so long, I wasn't even sure it was still working. I figured it might be dry, but it showed up pretty well on the layout. I think it's called Brilliance, or is it Moonlight? I am not sure. The brand is Brilliance. Anyway, I am adding those snowflakes, and you can see I'm just turning my stamp just so that all of the snowflakes don't look like they're in the same direction all the time. And of course, I'm stamping some of these off to the edge of the page. And I'm just going to add that to the top part of the layout. Now, I noticed right away after adding in the splatters and those snowflakes that the white is helping my, my layout come alive. It's helping everything else pop. And sometimes, of course, black does that to help colors pop. But in this case here with this layout, I noticed that the white was doing that. So I wanted to add some more white elements on here. So I'm using my gel pen right now, my white gel pen. And I'm going to outline some of the leaves on these two trees. Not all of them, but just some of them. And then I went ahead and outlined, really messy outline, all of the bricks. Here I am going to darken up my bricks once again. I faded them out before, but once the cats are sitting on the bricks, they looked a little bit like they were sitting on nothing at all. It was just fading out a little bit too much. So I went in with the black soot with a little tiny dauber, and I went ahead and filled in all of the bricks. And here I'm going in with black soot and with a very light hand, just swiping it across my wall and That way it covered up some of the orange in the background and kind of solidified my brick wall right there. Here I'm just going lightly all the way around once again and outlining, inking the edges of my layout. Now at this point, I felt I needed a little something else on the top part of my layout. So I'm going in with just the leaves, the branches, the leaves of my stencil and layering them up. And then of course, I went ahead and outlined some of the leaves, not all of them. So now I'm going to work on my word phrase. I do not add a huge title on this. I'm just adding a word phrase. And it said, instead of presents this year, I'm giving everyone my opinion. So I added that in, and I did go ahead and cut it in half, and I just used my black soot ink pad to swipe across my word phrase just so it's not stark white on the background. And there you can see I added some more leaves to my trees using the black soot, and I added some more splatters using my Posca paint pen. So here we have the completed layout. I hope you guys enjoyed the process, and if you did, be sure to give me a thumbs up before you leave. Don't forget to go ahead and subscribe today, and also share this video with anyone you think might enjoy it. So I want to thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye.